Welcome to The Real Recipe, the podcast that brings you the perfect blend of real estate trends and topics, where we serve up fresh insights and sizzling strategies. So let's get cooking.
And we're back. Jackie doesn't want to do the intro.
I hate doing the intro.
Oh, another episode of The Real Recipe. Jackie doesn't want to do the intro, so you're stuck with
Ryan's the radio guy.
my pretty little face. So today, we've been getting we've been seeing a lot of people talking about financing for Airbnb. Mm-hmm. How do you get that? That's a good question.
Short-term financing.
Short-term rental financing.
I think the question comes up where people are like they don't want to buy it as a necessarily investment property, but they're like, oh, what if you're buying it as a second home? And then I don't know. What's the ins and outs of that?
Well, what inevitably happens is most people will buy it as a second home.
Right.
Like now, it's becoming more of a conversation because people are questioning, like, oh, hey, maybe I bought this a few years ago. Mm-hmm. I've been Airbnb the crap out of this thing now for the last couple of years. I'm making all this money with it, and I want to take some equity out of it because now I have equity in the property, right?
Okay.
But they don't have a long-term lease on the place, mm-hmm. And they need the income from the property in order to qualify for the financing. So if you were to just go to a traditional lender, they don't have options for you.
Right.
They're like you got to go walk into Bank of America or Chase or Wells. They're not gonna be able to offer anything to you. So you have to come into the secondary market. You know, the guys like me who will have lenders that are able to finance based on your rental history, mm-hmm. specifically through Airbnb or whatever Vacasa or whatever other one that's out there.
Not going to be deeded as a second home or an investment property already, or one or the other, or it doesn't matter?
Well, it's by its nature, it's going to be an investment property regardless.
Okay.
And in most cases, if you've been doing it as an Airbnb, you more than likely have it in an LLC to provide some protections.
Well, I mean, it should, but a lot of people are Airbnb-ing their not primary but secondary homes, and it's not deeded in an LLC. So I guess if you're refinancing, that's a different question than if you're purchasing for that.
That is probably another topic about it, because if you do have an Airbnb and you are renting it out consistently and you have it in your name individually, the legal complications of that, the risk of that is pretty high, and I would encourage people to not do that just because you don't want, what if somebody trips and falls, sues you, what if something happens on the property?
Of course.
You're personally responsible for that because you're the owner. At least if you have it in an LLC, you give yourself a little bit of veil of protection.
I know we talked about that in the other episode too, but I think even the people who are and that's really, I feel like how Airbnb started, is people were renting out second homes or primary homes.
This is such a great idea. I'm going to start renting it out on Airbnb. I'm going to make all this money.
What a headache.
Yeah.
But at a minimum, a lot of people, even if it's deeded in their own individual names or, a few people, they are taking the income through an LLC though.
Yeah, they're right. They probably are doing it in some fashion. But if you're going to do short-term rental on your property, you are able to use that income on the property to qualify yourself for a mortgage. And typically the way it works is you'd have to show me a couple of things, right? One of them being I need to see an active listing on one of the sites, one of the platforms, whatever that platform is, Airbnb being the biggest one. So I need to see the active listing. I need to see rental history. Mm-hmm. So, typically you can download from Airbnb
transaction
history. So I want to see what that looks like, at least over a 3 or 6 month period.
Okay, that's pretty short, actually.
Yeah, and then what we'll do is we'll use those numbers to determine what a monthly income on that property looks like, and then we'll use that against the mortgage, and we'll come up with a debt service ratio based on those numbers.
Right.
Now we will factor in expenses and other things, but it's kind of as simple as that, right? It just show me that it's listed. Show me that you've been renting it out for
Right.
a little bit of time, and I'll use those numbers to qualify you.
Okay.
But what we also do behind the scenes that most people don't realize is we will use Air DNA. Did you ever hear Air DNA? Kind of shows you Air DNA. For those that don't know, is a resource that's out there for investors, for agents, for other people. It kind of gives you an idea of how many listings are in a particular area or
for
a
Airbnb.
town. Yeah, what the average rent looks like. You know, it gives you a whole bunch of metrics, and so we as lenders we use that also to determine whether the rental history is viable or not, and
Right.
will
Continue to be viable too.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
a lot of people are turning to Air DNA for that now.
Right, to make a
anytime.
decision, to make
Yes.
an investment decision. But yeah, it's pretty straightforward. There really isn't a lot of moving parts to it. A lot of the lenders that I use, that's all I care about is the rental history on the property. I care about the listing, the active listing. Care about the rental history on the property. Make sure that it's got some good history to it. Use that income. Use that ratio or use that income in determining the debt service coverage ratio, as long as it's.
What's the minimum you look
Yeah,
for
I mean,
with
you
that?
could typically it's kind of all over the place, and it's kind of changing right now because I think a lot of investors are getting a little skittish with the market because Airbnb seems to be seeing some pressure right now, or the short-term rental market seems to have a little bit of pressure right now. But as long as you're covering the mortgage at least one, the rental income and the mortgage is at least 1-to-1, you'll have financing available.
Okay.
The challenge there though is the interest rate that you're going to pay. You're when you're doing short-term rental, and that's all I'm using to qualify you. I'm not using W-2s or tax returns, or,
Right.
or doing a more comprehensive dive into your income. You're going to pay a higher interest rate as a result, right? It's just, hey, this is the rental history on the property. This is what it looks like, and that's what we're going to use. So an interest rate is typically higher.
Okay.
And when I say higher, probably in, I don't know, 8s, 9s. So, a 30-year fixed conventional mortgage with tax returns, with pay stubs, and W-2s is in the 7s today.
Right. And all the
So it's not terrible when you think
headache that
about it.
comes along with it.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people that are doing it, at least some of the people I know, some people do clear quite a bit on Airbnb, but a lot of times people are they're getting their expenses covered for the year with maybe like a little excess. And that's good enough for them because their mortgage and their interest and their expenses are covered. Maybe they're not taking, $20,000, $50,000 home at the end of the day from an Airbnb at the end of the year.
Yep.
But it's their money's invested somewhere and they're paying down principal and it's not costing them anything.
Yep.
So
there are options out there. You can go the Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac route, but you got to show 2 years tax returns. You got to show what the rental income looks like for 2 years, and substantiate it that way.
Right.
But that typically isn't enough to make it work. At the end of the day, the short-term financing option, using some of these alternative lenders to do it,
Right.
is a good option for a lot of people. Simply because I don't really care about any other aspects of your personal financial history.
And this is
in
more
terms of financing.
specific to refinancing because if someone's purchasing and financing short term, how do you use?
You can. I can, as long as I can see that it's got same thing. As long as I can see that it's got an active listing, that I've got rental history.
Okay.
Similar to like you would do on a commercial loan,
Right.
Commercial loan, if you're going to buy a commercial property, you're going to ask the seller for
Rent roll and stuff like
well,
that.
I need the last 2 or 3 years of tax returns for the building just to see what the income looks like to validate it.
Right.
We'll use that to qualify. We'll look at current rent on any units that are current market rent on any units that are vacant, but for the most part, you'll be able to determine what a monthly rent roll looks like, and what monthly income looks like, and then you can reverse engineer it from there. So financing on short-term rentals is actually not very hard at all. Truthfully, it's just you got to make sure that it's rented. You got to have an active listing. Got to make sure you have the transaction history, and that's it. And we can do the rest from there. So for people that have the short-term, that have Airbnb, Vacasa, or any short-term rentals, they want to get get financing on it, but they don't know where to start because they probably called their mortgage guy, and the mortgage guy's like, "Oh, I can't do that. You're there, we don't have any lenders for that." It actually is pretty easy to do. Just got to get connected to the right person who knows what that financing looks like, and all the other aspects of the mortgage or financing for it are the same, right? I still need title work. I still need an appraisal in most cases. A normal mortgage transaction, other than the fact that we need the Airbnb stuff, and which we do validate too, by the way, and which we can validate. So
Yeah.
Like I said, through the AirDNA stuff and stuff like that. So, but it is pretty straightforward transaction. It's not overly complicated. So, if you do have short-term rentals,
It's good to know.
you can get financing.
I know. No one ever really talks about that. Like you said, if someone just called they have an Airbnb, they would just call their mortgage broker or look around, and they would just be entering into a refinance with their like regular W-2s or their other income.
Well, normally what would happen is, two things would happen. One, you're going to call your regular mortgage guy, and he's going to tell you, "Oh, I don't have those options," and then you got to finance it as a second home.
Right.
But what inevitably happens is most people want to take out more money out of that than maybe they can afford, so they need the income in order to make it work, to support the financing or to support the debt that's on the property. So in that case, then you need to go outside of what a traditional mortgage qualification would look like, and that's where you're going to start needing the transaction history and all that stuff to make it work. So
Good to know.
pretty straightforward.
Yeah. Is that it? Is that? Yeah.
That's it. That's all it is.
That's it on that one.
It's not overly complicated. Who you work with matters. That's the important
Who you
part.
Airbnb with matters.
Who you Airbnb? Yes. Who you finance your Airbnb with matters. So.
I owe a guest a review today, actually, as it is.
Do you?
Yeah, they just checked out.
Okay.
So
Did they have a good time?
I hope so.
Yeah.
They followed all the house rules. So
That's important.
on to the next one.
Yeah, that's the thing though. Some of these people are making so much money on some of these properties. It is location specific,
Sure.
but some of these property values have gone up, huge amount for people. Some of these people have owned these homes for quite a number of years, and said, "Oh, okay, I might as well start renting it out." And now all of a sudden this is a house they bought 10, 15 years ago that they're Airbnb now, and they're making $10,000 a month on it. It's like, okay, I could take some money out of this, and I want to go do stuff on my house, or I want to go buy another property, or.
I can't speak for all other parts of the country, but obviously in New Jersey, being location specific, the Jersey Shore is just such a big one. People have owned these houses for years, and they're just selling for ridiculous amounts of money, or they're, able to pull so much equity out of it the past few years. And when I look at what some of these Airbnb per night rentals are, I'm like, some of these places, this place is a dump. And it's literally getting like $800 a night. Like, what? But it's just location, or you're in a location where there's not, we always use Long Beach Island as a good example, because there's really not a lot of hotels down there.
Sure.
So why is someone going to spend $800 a night for a hotel, for the hotel that is available, when you get one bedroom, when you could just Airbnb
Get an entire house.
and put your whole family in there, whether you're staying for a wedding or whatever else.
Yeah.
So.
Well, you're coming. This is wedding season now, anyway.
Oh yeah, we get a lot of
rentals
in wedding season.
I'm doing one right now in Hawaii. Guy has a 1-bedroom condo in Hawaii, makes $10,000 a month.
Yeah.
It's insane. Absolutely insane.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So I want everyone to get married at the Jersey Shore.
Yes.
Please go get married at the Jersey Shore.
Go get married at the Jersey Shore. You may see Taylor Swift and other celebrities floating around nowadays.
All right.
So yes, is financing on short-term rentals.
All right.
Yeah.
Till next time.